Our lives are measured not in distance traveled, but by each step we take. And on this walk, quality can be measured by who we touch and those who touch us. It is the smiles, the heartaches, the playful abandon, the sunsets that cause us to stop and watch. The stars at night shine on all, whether in the far north or the African savanna. This is a story of us. It just happens that this story takes place in southern Sudan, in a village called Old Fangak. Old Fangak is in the heart of Africa. It is located in the northern portion of southern Sudan, an area called the Sud, the largest wetlands in the world. The river flowing past this tiny settlement is a tributary of the Nile River. The river is often choked with islands which break away from the shoreline. Not long ago, an elephant was seen floating past on just one of these. By any modern measurement, life here is primitive, basic survival. It would be easy to believe that life here has not changed much in the last 2,000 years. The food ground on stone. The blind and sick sit by the wayside. Homes are made of mud and sticks and thatch. It is a simple life, a good life if there is maize left from the last growing season, if there is tobacco to spread in the sun. After decades of civil war, the people of this area live basically uneducated. Day to day, season to season, it is life close to the earth. Today, several women gather by the river. They practice a choreographed dance which has been passed from generation to generation. They are preparing for a celebration in honor of visitors from a very unlikely place, about as far away from Sudan as you can get, Alaska. During the dry season, Old Fangak has one luxury most other villages do not enjoy: an airstrip. The Cessna caravan has just arrived. Its passengers, all from Alaska, are part of a volunteer group called the Alaska Sudan Medical Project. It's over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and it doesn't take much to work up a sweat. The supplies, including food, camping gear, medicine, must be carried to the riverbank. They have come primarily to finish construction on a new medical building for another Alaskan, Dr. Jill Seaman, who for over 2 decades has worked to help the people of southern Sudan. But they're about to find out that in Africa, you have what you plan, and you have what happens. In early November, a few small ponds are all that's left from the rainy season. A monitor lizard over 5 feet long hunts for fish in this tiny oasis. On the pond's edge, A cobra slithers to its hiding place. It's clear by the sights and sounds and smells you're not in Alaska anymore. For David Kapla, this is a homecoming. 7 months ago, David and fellow volunteers erected the shell of the new medical clinic. This is his first look at the structure since returning, and he's eager to get to work to finish it. But that's not going to happen soon.
The very first thought was, this is going to take a lot longer than we had expected it to.
The building shell has become home for 100 or more Sudanese who have come to Olfangak to be treated for a deadly parasitic infection. The village is ground zero of an epidemic of Kala-Azar. These IDPs, internally displaced people, came sick and starving. The clinic became their refuge.
The logistical issues of what are we going to do with these people really didn't enter my head at that point. It was simply the matter of, okay, we have multiple delays because there's no way you can kick these people just out into the dirt streets. They needed some kind of shelter.
First word of the spreading epidemic came a few months earlier. Clinic Medical Officer Sanduk Magwek, who is also called Peter, noticed an alarming and growing number of patients with Kala-Azar and reported the news to Dr. Jill, who was back in Alaska working in Bethel.
Because the normal number was below 100, so when it reaches to 500, from there I said, this is abnormal now. I feel it is Kala-Azar outbreak time. And I reported to Jill in Alaska.
And he was telling us everything was going crazy because of the numbers, and he would give us numbers that were out of this world. We came back to the week that they admitted the most people in 1 week. 280 people were admitted in 1 week. It's a lot of people to admit.
Shortly after Jill arrived in the fall, the number of patients being treated each day numbered 1,000.
Everybody who lives in the area has someone affected. Everybody. There isn't a home that's not affected by someone with Kala-Azar. It's a huge outbreak.
Dr. Jack Hickel arrives in Nairobi, Kenya on his way to Olfangak. In Sudan, he's joined by Dual Goni, a Sudanese educated in the United States returning home to help. After a day's travel on the Zaref River, Jack and Dual arrive in the village, and David gives a tour of the new medical clinic and ongoing projects. Outside on the dirt, the IDPs are preparing meals. Sometimes they have fish from the river made into a stew. Usually, it is sorghum cooked into a thin, hot porridge. The sorghum and cooking oil is provided by the World Food Program and is rationed to the Kala-Azar patients. Already undernourished, they need both food and medicine to get well. Nothing goes to waste. Drop kernels of sorghum will be sifted from the dirt. A new day brings the last rain of the season. It will not rain again for 6 months. At the Alaska Sudan Medical Project campsite, the team waits. Mud. You can play in it, and you can play with it. These young men are more than happy to show off their play guns, fashioned from mud and sticks, just like boys everywhere. Around 9 in the morning, the patients coming for their daily Kala-Azar treatment start a slow and steady march towards the clinic. All ages of patients, but it's mostly the young. The area beneath the trees and outside the clinic soon fills. This is the sound of morning clinic. In years past, many of these Sudanese would have simply stayed home and died. The country, amidst decades of civil war, simply did not have the capacity to help them. And in reality, they still don't. It's because Jill is here, and because her national staff, led by Sunduk, is trained and wanting to help their own people, that a massive treatment program like this works.
In our setting, we are very fortunate that the national staff has taken this on as though this is their emergency. They are responding. And it's unbelievable. The most difficult part then becomes getting in all the necessary things. For instance, if you consider giving 900 people an injection, some of them need 2. You've got over 1,100 needles and syringes used in one day. If you multiply that by 30, you see the numbers, 30,000 needles and 30,000 syringes a month, plus everything else that needs to come in. Those numbers are just like way out of proportion to what you would expect in a small village.
The shots are painful. A heavy metal injected once a day for a month. The patients wait for their names to be called. Even the children are handed syringes and then wait for their turn to be injected. It is noisy, chaotic, necessary, and soon it will be quiet again until tomorrow. At the Alaska Sudan Medical Project compound, volunteers are working on a new awning for the medical clinic. Since they can't work inside the building, they'll work on the exterior. This awning will provide shade from the sun and relief from the rain. Mike Remillard, a dentist back in Alaska, is an apprentice welder in Sudan. A site near the medical clinic has been selected for the village's 3rd water well. It's the hope that this well will provide clean water for the clinic. As the ground is being prepared, a commotion erupts nearby along the river. The commissioner has arrived. James Mawut Ree is the political head of Fangak County. He's come to the village to celebrate the arrival of the Alaska team. Amidst all the chaos and the Kalazar, there's going to be a celebration. Villagers gather in the courtyard. When the British colonized Sudan, it was probably right here they held their parades and welcomed important visitors. Today, it is the Alaskans being welcomed. It is hot, dusty, and festive. After the dancing, and after 2 warriors put on a show, the Alaskans are given a warm welcome, with hands warmed by rubbing.
Okay, Iowa. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Jack, would introduce the teams.
The commissioner welcomes each member of the team and announces that tomorrow there will be another celebration.
And tomorrow, we will celebrate their coming.
The land along the river is rich and fertile. Members of the Alaska team are going to take a look at a garden farmed by Tyak. Tyak received a micro loan from the Alaska Sudan Medical Project, allowing him to buy a water pump. Tyak also received seedlings and gardening help from the Kambonis, Catholic missionaries living in Old Fangak. With help and hard work, Tyak now has 2 gardens which are producing fruits and vegetables, enough to feed his family and sell in the markets. Tyak's father and family welcome the Alaska team. This is a traditional home site away from the village. It's almost dinner time. Like any kitchen, right before supper, it's busy. While the Alaskans inspect the gardens, the family collects tomatoes to be sold in the market. Maize is grown in many parts of southern Sudan. After the harvest, you'll often see it hanging from trees, away from the cows and goats. Tyak's family has a lot of maize and plenty of mouths to feed. Using a traditional dugout canoe, his brother paddles into the river to check the fishing nets. During the decades of war, families moved away from the rivers, away from the gunboats. Farming and fishing is one of the dividends of peace and a ray of hope for the future. It's a typical November day in Old Fangak. In the market, fried bread sizzles in a vat of cooking oil. It is served with sugar like a donut. There's plenty of tea and conversation.
This is kerkede. It's a flour from Sudan, and the people get it dry and prepare a tea that is very nice.
The fragrances and sounds shift with the time of day, but there's always activity, always something stirring. Shopkeepers, some who have come from Darfur, offer clothing and candy, cigarettes and transistor radios, and all sorts of other goods. 3 years ago, there were only a half-dozen shops at most. Now it seems like a South Sudan shopping mall. Near the riverbank, a group of young entrepreneurs are busy with flour-covered hands. This is the time of day to make and bake bread. The Alaska team has settled into a daily routine. Work on a water well is in full swing. A barge carrying a new drill and many needed supplies has been delayed, so the team works with a well-worn drilling rig and a water pump which might give out at any moment. They are assisted by Stephen and a group of young men from the village. The goal is not just to deliver clean water. It's also to deliver a hands-on education. Perhaps one day one of these men will be supervising the drilling of wells. At midday, the first of the church choirs parades into the village. These young men and women are from the Presbyterian Church in Nunamash, a neighborhood just upriver. They'll be joined by the Catholic choir and the Episcopalians. Let the party begin.
Go, go, go,
this is a big deal. It's a celebration principally to say thank you to the men and women from Alaska. Thank you to Dr. Jill and to the national staff who are caring for the thousands of sick during the Kala-Azar epidemic.
This Alaska team who arrived here now, they are with us. They are our guests. They are our friends.
Commissioner James thanked each person from Alaska and each worker in the clinic by handing out certificates. But the thanks extend well past the village, all the way around the world to Alaska. They know that help is coming from many people, and that help is saving lives.
Good afternoon. I bring greetings from all of the people in Alaska.
After all the speeches, when the celebration is over, it's like everyone has just taken a deep, relaxing breath. But now it's time for the afternoon clinic. Dozens are already waiting to be seen. Cuts, snake bites, malaria, heart conditions, all the usual ailments and more. They say the best environment for the sandfly is around red acacia trees and cracked earth. Two things they have in plentiful supply in this area of Sudan. Jack Hickel has joined an epidemiologist from the government of South Sudan to examine sandfly traps they put out yesterday. The sandfly is about the size of a mosquito, and, as expected, they caught several amongst the acacia trees and right next to the family hut.
Yeah, it's just the host, and the parasite is inside.
The bite of the sandfly might transmit parasites that invade various organs of the body. The disease is called visceral leishmaniasis, or Kala-Azar. It has killed over 100,000 people in South Sudan. In over 2 decades of work in Sudan, Jill Seaman is recognized as one of the world's experts in fighting the disease.
Presently, just in the past maybe 3 months, 3 to 4 months, we've seen over 3,000, about 3,500 people that we've admitted for Kala-Azar. So it's absolutely huge. And Kala-Azar is almost always fatal if it's not treated. Kala-Azar has been designated what's called a neglected tropical disease. Lots of the deaths in the world are due to infectious diseases, but those deaths, 97% or more of those deaths occur in areas of poverty. And those deaths, many of them, are preventable.
Here's a sight you won't see in many medical clinics back home: infants hanging from trees. Nurse Ann Evans, a friend of Jill's from Bethel, is working admissions. These babies are being admitted for treatment of Kala-Azar, and dosage is dependent on weight. It seems that infants and children are most at risk of being bitten by the sandfly which carries Kala-Azar. Kids playing outside are bitten more frequently, sometimes with deadly results. The clinic is admitting as many as 30 new patients each day, with no end in sight. They called her Baby Skeleton, almost 2 years old, malnourished and sick. Her mother came from a distant village several days away, and it seems she waited too long to seek treatment. In another bed, a 9-year-old they called Long Skeleton. He was brought in on a stretcher, weighing just 35 pounds and sick with Kala-Azar. Unless they live within a short walk, getting medical treatment for one sick child puts a strain on the whole family.
If we just got a boatload of people in that have come from far away, they tend to be more malnourished because, they're trying to weigh, do I, take up the family and travel this far? Do they have to sell a cow to be able to buy a passage on the boat to get here? And it's sort of human nature to say, well, maybe they'll get better.
Her name was Nyagan Reek. A few hours after these images were filmed, Nyagan died. Diarrhea was all it took. She was too malnourished, too weak, ultimately too late. When asked how they deal with these seemingly senseless deaths, a nurse said, "Shed tears and try to save the next one." Life goes on. Many babies are being saved. They will try to save Ree. In a nearby village of Chotborough, about 30 minutes downriver from Olfangak, a clinic to vaccinate children is being held. Tens of thousands of children in this region have not been vaccinated against common childhood diseases. After today, the non-profit conducting the clinic is pulling out, taking its people elsewhere. The Alaska Sudan Medical Project would like to consider taking over the job if funding is available. While inoculations continue, a group of children gather in the shade. Drawn by both the drumming and the camera, the children sing and start to dance. In this village, there is no source of clean drinking water. Children do not go to school. There isn't a medical clinic. In just a few months, there will be no food, and these children might go days at a time without any nourishment. When asked what they were singing, they said, "God is great." Back in Olfangak, Mike Remillard is taking a break from construction to work on his juggling. Mike has attracted a number of apprentices. The kids are eager to learn, and Mike is eager to teach. Smiles all around. It has been several weeks since the Alaska team has come to the village. Some members have left and new Alaskans arrive. Work on the well ground to a halt after seals on the water pump gave out. The good news was they reached fresh water, but the well was not deep enough. So when the new drill and pump arrive, they'll start over. Finally, the barge carrying 2 Connex containers loaded with construction supplies, the new well driller, rugged wheelchairs, rototillers, and all sorts of other needed materials arrives just before sunset. It has been months since the containers left the United States, and now, at last, they're here. It was a joyful moment, a sign of hope. David Kapla has been waiting for weeks to peek inside these containers. The materials include the concrete floorboard for Jill's new clinic, and there's a new ASMP boat. There's also plenty of help to get everything unloaded. A brand new water drilling rig donated by a group from Iowa makes it to shore intact. After several hours, everything was safe on the riverbank. Nothing broken and no one hurt. Along the way, several of the young men have found a use for the packing material. They make their own fashion statement. But now it's time to push and pull the containers off the barge. Amidst an ongoing discussion in at least 2 languages, a wandering herd of cattle draws everyone's attention. It appears they have issues of their own to sort out. In most ports, there would be a crane to lift the containers off a barge like this, but this is about as remote as you can get in Africa. And yet, success, both times. Somewhere beneath this earth, the Alaska team hopes they'll find water sufficient for a new well. The new drilling rig is put to its first test. So far, so good. Everyone hopes that within a week, a new borehole will provide water for Jill's clinic and the village. The Alaska Sudan Medical Project volunteers are asked to help with latrines for the village. Fuel drums will be used as liners. But first, they must be cut in half and then welded to make a large liner. More than 24 latrines are completed at strategic locations around the village. Some will be used for a school, if there is a school.
It's another one?
For Old Fangak, school is an occasional affair. Classes are taught beneath the trees. You have to bring your own chair.
And 6 minus 2, 4.
The government has not yet provided the funds to pay teachers in Old Fangak. Today, the math and other classes are taught by volunteers. Students seem eager to learn. While an area is being cleared to build a couple of temporary shelters, a man, blind and sick, waits seemingly for life's end. Pain and suffering walk side by side with hope and love in Old Fangak. It is the way. After 6 weeks, Ree is recovering. He's gaining weight, and although he needs a cane to walk, he is walking on his own. Jill comes to take him to the clinic for a checkup. Life goes on. Back at the well site, work is grinding to a halt. The project is taking longer than expected. Well drilling is challenging in this environment, and there's just not enough time to finish the project before this group will return home. Reluctantly, well number 3 is put on hold until the coming fall. This is not an easy place to work, and it's not an easy place to watch. Volunteers coming to Old Fangak often wrestle with the disparity of life here and life back home.
Every step you take back home in America, it's a reminder of the difference between the bubble that we live in and the reality of the rest of the world.
Yet, step by step, change is coming. On the barge, there were 9 wheelchairs. And now little Taban, who had been stuck in the Tukol, unable to walk, can get around the village.
It's just an amazing thing. From being stuck inside a hut, 24/7, he now can bike over to the church, he can bike to the village market, he can bike to school. The schools are out right now, but I'm really, really hoping he bikes to school.
An older man who just yesterday walked on his hands now is driving and has new freedom.
He said thank you to me in English. He was so amazed.
The village celebrates. The village suffers. Old Fangak is halfway around the world, and yet the people here are tied to Alaska. For them, Alaska is not a land of glaciers and mountains. It's a place where people give hope and love to their brothers and sisters in Sudan. Sanduk knows he's no longer alone.
I may pay back some million thanks and keep that spirit. To me, to Alaska, very thank you.
This is the story of us. We just happen to live in different villages.
Yara,